In this episode of Rolling with Ray, you will meet medical expert Bill Thornton, a physical therapist. Bill holds a doctorate's degree and a master's degree from Wayne State University. He also has a bachelor's degree in allied health and also a bachelor's degree in science from the University of Texas in Arlington. Bill has over 20 years working in the field of spinal cord injury with physical therapy. Today, he's co-owner of several physical therapy clinics in the Detroit, Michigan area. He will describe how he has helped the spinal cord injury community with their disabilities. It's my honor and privilege to introduce you to Bill Thornton, the physical therapist. Bill, thank you for being on my podcast called Rolling with Ray. Good morning.
Good to see you, Ray.
Bill, can you tell me why you became a physical therapist and what inspired you to work with spinal cord injury folks?
I had a ton of injuries, to put it lightly, over the years, which just kind of led me back to school and physical therapy. Torn rotator cuff, torn shoulder labrum, back surgery from lifting weights, broken bones. Like I said, a lot of injuries. And it just led me back to, again, school and physical therapy. The spinal cord injury kind of fell in my lap. I got into research in school. I really enjoyed it. And the dean of the program, a PhD, was doing spinal cord injury research. So I was always willing to volunteer and help. And he kind of threw my name in a basket for a brand new spinal cord program down at the Rehab Institute of Michigan in Detroit. And as a new graduate, I got the job, and it was, a really, really neat program to be aggressive, to see what kind of recovery you could actually get with all, various levels of spinal cord injury. And again, helping out, his name was Dr. Tom Burke, helping him out, I also had access to all of his equipment, body weight support treadmills, some really, really neat stuff that was cutting edge 20 years ago. When he wasn't using it, I had a key to it. So I usually would go pick a patient and say, hey, I just read an article, let's go try something. So it was, it was a really good experience. And
That's awesome.
It's how it led to working with spinal cord injury.
Okay. You are co-owner of several physical therapy clinics in the Detroit, Michigan area. So you see a lot of spinal cord injury patients come through there. What do you think is the number one cause of spinal cord injury?
I mean, I know we've talked, automobile accident is obviously the number one injury, but in 20 years, I can tell you, I have seen, you pick something, and I have seen some type of spinal cord injury, whether it be a knitting needle, getting clipped on a quad runner, going through a cornfield by a deer. I mean, I've got some really weird stories. So
can you describe to our viewers about the needle point?
It was. So again, that spinal cord program downtown was new, and this young man came over from England, and so I started doing my evaluation, and I tried to do a pretty detailed history. And I said, how did the injury happen? And he said, guess. And about 15 minutes later, I said, I give up. I had no clue. And he said he was wrestling with his brother. And again, I think he was about 12 years old and his brother about 15. And he went to dive on his brother on the couch, tackle him. And his brother moved, and their mom had put all the knitting needles and her yarn between two of the cushions. And C5-6 complete injury.
It went straight through the spinal cord.
Yep. I mean, very weird freak. You could do it 100 times and it never happened again.
That's amazing. So when a newly injured patient comes in to see you, what process do you use to evaluate that person?
I think it's evolved and continues to evolve over the years. There is an ASIA scale, American Spinal Cord Injury Association scale for the different levels of injuries, ASIA A, B, C, D. And when you do that testing, it's it's a rigid format. The person's flat on their back and certain movements. And what I found, and what a lot of my mentors that taught me have found, testing, manual muscle testing, sensory testing in various positions with different stretches and pulls, pressure on the muscles, a lot of times will elicit things that you won't find just flat on your back. So, I generally, will spend at least a good hour doing an evaluation, looking for things. The other thing with the evaluations, depending on the level of the injury, the severity of the injury, how old is the injury, it may be an evaluation over 2 days, 2 hours. I have, most people are told that the majority of the recovery, or if anything is going to happen, it's going to be the first 12 to 16 months. But I have seen people have recovery of function 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years later. And I've seen people convert from an Asia A to an Asia B, or from a complete injury to an incomplete injury. And, once you become an incomplete injury, the whole mindset in healthcare changes, and people will say you need to be aggressive and you need to attack. I think the problem is that, when you're originally injured, you're given that diagnosis. Well, that diagnosis stays with you for life, but you may convert. Your
Sure.
original diagnosis is a C5-6 Asia A, complete injury, but 3 years later, if you don't realize that you're an Asia B, no one's being aggressive and no one's treating you, in my opinion, properly, to see what kind of function you can actually recover.
Bill, can you explain this to our viewers, what the difference is between a complete injury and an incomplete injury? For example, I'm considered a C5, C6 quadriplegic complete injury. That means that I have severed the spinal cord. It has been severed. So can you describe what an incomplete injury is versus a complete injury?
Well, yeah, the first thing I'd say is, if you look at the majority of spinal cord injuries, there's most are not, the spinal cord's not severed. I've seen MRIs where you really, just to your eye, you can't see anything damaged, yet they're a complete injury. Again, what I was taught and what I look at as the true definition of a complete injury is not whether the cord was severed, but whether we go to the end of the spinal cord and it's the bulbocavernosus, spongiosis. It's a digital rectal examination, and if there's sensory there or motor function detected there, generally you're going to be labeled an incomplete injury. There are, I have treated numerous people with a knife or a gunshot in which there was truly a transected cord and a complete injury. But generally, the incomplete injury means there is some type of sensory or motor function preserved below the level of the injury. So again, C5-6, and you've got some kind of leg sensation. So you're an Asia B, meaning that there's sensory below the level of the lesion, but no motor, no movement. Hopefully that cleared it up a little.
Yes, it did, and I appreciate you. Explaining that to our viewers. Bill, how many patients do you see on a typical given day? And I'm talking about like in a rehab setting for spinal cord injury.
Sure. Again, it's been a while since I worked inpatient rehab, but that's where I started, and I enjoyed it. It is challenging, but generally it was 7 patients, and then maybe you would help with one group. Again, the groups, depending on the level of the injuries, you can kind of put together, some people that need to do a function maybe at a mat level versus some that are ambulatory or some type of gait training. But generally 6 to 7 patients, an hour session. Some of the rehab settings that I really liked, that I worked in when I first started, you had 4 patients a day, and you saw them twice a day. So, I had 8 hours, but 4 patients. An hour, generally I'd break it down into working on the actual deficit in the second hour, or vice versa, function, whether it's wheelchair, transfers, gait, something that, a common goal that I agreed on and the patient agreed on.
Bill, how do you handle in a rehabilitation setting when an individual does not want to hear what you're having to tell them? Because you got to understand, the life they once knew is not the same life that they have today. So
No.
how do you handle situations like that as a physical therapist?
Maybe I look at it differently, but I have always had the mentality that I'm looking at my patient. This could be my brother, this could be my son, my daughter, my mom, my dad, and that's how I treat the patient. It's it's a devastating injury. Again, I don't know that I can handle it like a lot of the people and colleagues, business partners that have that had an injury. But I go into it with an open mind, and I went round and round with some doctors because you're promising false hope, and I said nope, sorry. I don't see any difference in walking in a room and saying you're never going to walk again. That's no hope, and there's a small chance. So, when I have that newly injured person and I'll say, what's your long-term goal? And they'll say, I want to walk. And I'm like, that's perfect. That's a great goal. I said, now we got to do some short-term goals. You don't know how to get in and out of that chair, on and on. And I would usually, especially, so just an example, if it was a paraplegic injury, I usually, as soon as I can, get into the parallel bars and stand, because I know this person, with this injury is going to need good arm strength. So we'll do sit to stands. I'll block their knees. They're getting to stand. They're getting to work towards their long-term goals. I'm improving their arm strength, their shoulder strength, and now they can transfer or push the wheelchair. I just think there's a way that we can work on both goals, because it takes time to adjust, to put it lightly. And, I don't think walking in a room, I've got numerous stories, 18-year-old kid got carjacked, shot. He's at the hospital. It's 2 a.m. A doctor walks in, says you have a spinal cord injury, you'll never walk again, and leaves. And an 18-year-old laying in a hospital, family hasn't even got there yet. I just, it's tough, and it takes time, and I think it takes a team and everybody being on the same page, because I don't know what the future holds. The harder you work, the luckier you get. I think I've said it 100 times. My son loved hockey, and I was pretty sure he's not playing professional hockey, but I was going to do everything I could to give him every chance, because if I don't, there's no chance he's going to play professional hockey.
Absolutely.
And I look at, with the spinal cord injury the same way. I know the chance when that original diagnosis is complete injury, drops down big time, that you're going to walk again. But, be aggressive, be upbeat, try to, look at the glass as half full, not half empty. And, maybe this individual is going to convert to an ASIA B, an incomplete injury. And, once you become an incomplete injury, if you look at the odds of regaining bowel, bladder, sexual function, walking, and again, a lot of people will put bowel, bladder function way above walking. It goes through the roof. And I just think, as a physical therapist and in healthcare in general, you need to be more aware and stay in tune with these patients long after 12 months.
Sure, absolutely. And I guess that was leading to my next question is, for, every injury is different. So how long does it take for a newly injured person to, I guess, accept their new normal life?
Wow, that's,
I guess it depends on the individual.
It does. And I've got, I don't even want to say patients now, friends that I have worked with on and off over 21 years. I do. I have a gentleman coming back that I have probably been treating on and off over 20 years. He's an incomplete injury. He went to China for an experimental stem cell procedure. He did regain some function from it. Again, I'm not trying to promote anything, but I had access to this gentleman's ASIA scores and lower extremity testing. And, he's still primarily in a power wheelchair, but he can stand, he can take a step, and he did regain bowel, bladder, and sexual function. But that was 5-6 years at least after his injury.
So, Bill, as you know, I'm a C5, C6 complete quad, and I have a difficult time, especially during the winter months, to keeping warm.
Yeah.
Can you explain to our viewers that my body temperature is not the same as an able-bodied person, and I am constantly cold during the winter months, and then during the summer months, I'm constantly, it's harder to keep cooler for me.
Yep.
Can you explain that to our viewers of what's happening there?
I'll give it a shot. I mean, first, just look at things as simple as, that level of lesion, a C5, 6, you have lost a lot of muscle mass that doesn't vasodilate, vasoconstrict. The muscles aren't going to produce heat. And again, with that high level injury, you don't dissipate heat. So it's easy for you to become cold. It's very, very hard to dissipate the heat. And, those can lead to some serious conditions. The hypothalamus, the area in your brain that controls the sympathetic activity, the information from the brain to the body is not, it's not flowing, or it's not flowing correctly, and not being interpreted correctly.
I had a buddy of mine that when I went to school with, he was, it was like 20 degrees outside, and he was trying to get in his wheelchair, and he was a C4, C5 quadriplegic. He was in an electric chair, and he was out one night and didn't get into the house until it was late night. And he dropped his keys to his vehicle and couldn't get inside or outside to this vehicle. And it was back when there were no cell phones. And so he just basically had to stay in there and, I guess developed hypothermia.
Yeah.
Just because of the cold weather, and he could not keep warm. It's when I try to explain that to people about, like for example, yesterday here in Texas, we had a 30-degree temperature differential, and so from going from the hot to the cold, and my body temperature is just not regulated the same, and I try to explain that to people. But you did a good job of explaining that.
We did one thing at one of the first clinics. The ceilings were, really, really tall and vaulted. And, as you said, I've got it at 68 degrees or 70 degrees in the clinic. I'm comfortable. The patient's freezing. I just had an idea, so I went and got some of the flexible ductwork, and I dropped 2 or 3 vents, from whatever, I think the ceiling was about 30 feet. Down to 6 to 8 feet. And it was, again, I was just trying to give a place for the patient to go get warm, and they got nicknamed quad warming stations. People, they would, especially, it's Michigan and it's cold and there's snow, and I'd have patients get to the clinic 30 minutes early, and they said, I'm just going to go over to a warming station. And I'd laugh. That's fine. I'll be with you. Just let me know when you're ready.
That's awesome.
It works.
That's awesome. I still don't see how the quads and the paras up in Detroit, Michigan, live or survive in that cold weather. I guess they adapt to it, and
no, a lot of them move.
Yes,
yes,
so absolutely.
I've got a lot of friends that have winter places in Florida. They're getting out of Michigan for the winter.
Absolutely. What do you see in the next 10, maybe 15, 20 years as far as advancement, as far as physical therapy?
It is, just the last 20 years, from the equipment, and again, it's obviously a wheelchair, but, and you could spend all day lecturing on that, because some of these wheelchairs are so complex for the higher level injuries. But, the body weight support treadmill training, you've got the exoskeletons, there's different things you can do with electrical stimulation. They're doing the epidural stimulation and getting legs and stuff to move and walk. And I think all of that, if you can keep the body functional and healthy, certain levels of injuries will be spastic. And, if you can keep a joint at least mobile, somewhat healthy, the muscles at the right length, or all the soft tissue at the right length, you got a better chance down the line if you have some recovery or a procedure comes along. But you could spend all day on PubMed reading the research articles. There's been a ton of stem cell research. I think the problem is bench to bedside. We've cured a lot of rats. We need to transition this
Absolutely.
to people.
Absolutely.
But I do think I think it's possible. You don't need a completely intact spinal cord injury. I have a friend that if he walked by you, you would think maybe he has a little arthritis, an older gentleman. It wasn't until they got, I think it was a 3 Tesla MRI. Again, the newer, really, the definition is incredible. He's got maybe 10% of his spinal cord intact. Looks like a couple hairs. He regained everything.
Wow,
Again,
isn't that
walking
amazing?
a little slow, but at first glance, they thought it was a transected spinal cord, and he'll walk right by you.
Wow, that's amazing.
It is.
Bill, I guess this was leading up to my next question is that the reason that people are living longer because the advanced medical equipment? For example, when I came out of rehab, I was in an E&J chair, Everson Jennings chair, that weighed 45 pounds, and now I'm in a quickie chair that maybe
I
weighs
saw the
10,
picture,
15
you at the
pounds.
football game in the old chair, and I was just, I'm shaking my head. Yeah, it's not easy to push.
No, it's not. It's not. But modern technology has come a long way, in the last 40 years. And I really do believe that's one reason that people with spinal cord injuries are living longer. And the fact that, if you take care of yourself and you do a daily routine of exercising, just like any able-bodied person, you tend to live longer.
Yeah, I mean, if you go back to the 70s and 80s, the life expectancy for a complete quadriplegic wasn't that long. But simple things of urinary tract infection, becoming septic, autonomic dysreflexia. We know how to deal with those things.
Sure.
So
I got hurt at an early age, and they told me that I'd never see 50 years old, and of course I've proven them wrong. But one last question I have, Bill, before we wrap it up.
Sure.
First of all, I appreciate you being here and talking to us about physical therapy. For those that don't know, Bill and I have been childhood friends. We were on the same baseball team, Little League, growing up. Can you tell me or describe or tell the audience one of your best Ray Serta stories?
I thought of 2. Again, the first one, again, I don't know why it sticks in my mind. There was about 2 or 3 years, we had a pretty much unbeatable baseball team.
Sure, absolutely.
But I don't remember who we were playing, but it was just kind of a pop-up. And I was playing left field. I wasn't pitching. And I know you ran out, and I believe Ray Watson ran out, and all 3 of us kind of, collided, bumped. But then no one could find the ball. And we just stood there like 3 clowns. And I'm pretty sure the kid got to third base before the ref called timeout. And there was just, we were lucky somebody didn't break an ankle. There was a divot. So with it being mowed, the ball was right there in front of us. It was just, like a golf ball being a little buried in the grass. And it was just kind of embarrassing. I could still remember everybody running around.
And trying to look for the ball.
I think we were probably in our late 20s. And I don't remember which club was where everybody went. But I believe it was you, Randy, and Jesse De La Garza. There was a group of you guys from Irving and a group of the guys from Mac, and I saw you and I walked over and said, "Hey, what's going on?" And you had a pretty good scratched up nose, and I just remember making a smart comment saying, "You out, brawling at the bars," and I believe your comment was, "No, that's what happens when you don't put your chest strap on." So, and believe me, I got a couple stories with patients that didn't put a chest strap on before.
Yes, absolutely.
So,
absolutely.
Yeah. But,
well, Bill, I appreciate you being here and enjoy having you here. Next time you're in Texas, please stop by and visit me. And it's good seeing you. And I appreciate you being on my podcast called Rollin with Ray.
Yes,
Thank
sir.
you so much.
Anything I can do to help you, let me know.
Should you have any comments or questions, please don't hesitate to contact me at raysertabook@gmail.com or go to my website at www.The Life I Didn't Expect, Facing Adversity and Winning. Also, if you're looking for a good read today, please pick up my book called The Life I Didn't Expect, Facing Adversity and Winning. The book is on Amazon. And don't forget to follow me on Facebook, Instagram, and my YouTube channel called Rollin with Ray. Until I see you again, thank you very much for following me.